One of the most underrated speedruns in gaming is the Trackmania speedrunning scene. It is impossibly complex with no frame-perfect input strats, no pause buffering, no wall clips, no wrong warps, or any of the flashy game-breaking speedrun strats that are famous in so many speedrun games. Trackmania is simply put playing the intended game as close to perfection as possible. And in this video, I will try to show you the complexity and unbelievable precision it takes to create as close to a perfect speedrun of Trackmania as possible. In contrast to the old Trackmania Nations Forever, in which the campaign has 65 unchanged maps since 2008, the current iteration, just named Trackmania, has a main campaign that changes every 3 months with 25 seasonal maps that challenge players to drive on all the game's different surfaces and styles. We will go through the current season's first map in the campaign and showcase what on the surface is an easy map and explain the strategies to a deep level of complexity and hopefully make you appreciate just how precise and pixel perfect Trackmania truly is. Map 01, as it's called, looks fairly simple from above, a straightforward dirt track to introduce players to the campaign. Let us dissect it and show how a simple map hides many hidden mechanics that make what looks like a boring, easy map into a precision hellscape. The map starts off with a simple downhill into a small straight followed by a right-handed turn. You then have to do 2 small turns and finish off in a tight chicane into the finish. Let us see what is actually going on behind the scenes. Please notice that the speed in the gears of the car can be seen on the back of the car, right here. We again start off on the downhill. As we drive down the hill, we have to make it to 3rd gear. In Trackmania, gears happen automatically at these specific speeds. This means that the only way to manipulate your gears is to control your speed, or so it would seem. But this is not actually the case. Once the 3rd gear is reached, a hidden mechanic is used called speed sliding or speed drifting. To initiate a speed slide, one must start a drift at a specific angle and at a certain speed. The angle that you drift at is directly correlated to the speed that you're driving in. Starting at 220 speed on dirt, an approximate 80% tire mark overlap is needed for you to get an optimal speed slide. This overlap increases as you drive faster and seems to maximize at around 94% overlap at 900 plus speed. This means to do an effective speed slide, you must not just drift, but drift with an angle that you have to determine as you see your car's speed, and then slowly adjust the angle as you gain speed to match the required ratio for an optimal speed slide. But why would you do this? Speed sliding has 2 unique features that both are crucial to understand. First off, if you speed slide correctly, you accelerate faster. Car go faster more quickly. The more speed that you speed slide with, the more aggressive the change in acceleration is, to the point where if you drive on a map that's fast and you don't speed slide, you will stand absolutely 0 chance of driving a fast time. The second effect of speed sliding is to the gears. Remember I said that gears change at these exact speeds? Speed sliding affects the RPM of your car, which in turn affects the speed you need to change gears with, so you can effectively force earlier gear ups using this mechanic. And that is what is used here on the start of map 01. This early gear up created from speed drifting is called a forced early upper gear, and is a really difficult technique. Not only because it requires a small speed drift, but because of another mechanic that gears have. This will become important in a moment. So as you drive down the hill, you have to get 3rd gear, then speed slide for a couple of frames to get the forced early upper gear, and then immediately afterwards start speed sliding again to increase your acceleration. Now as you just entered 4th gear, you will be just under 250 speed. This means you want around 80% overlap of your tire marks. Keep doing this until you're about to gear up to 5th gear. This will happen around the 330 speed mark as you once again are getting a forced early upper gear because you're speed sliding. So what is done here is a mechanic called slide cancel. To avoid gearing up while drifting, a counter steering input is utilized to straighten out your car, thus making sure the car is not drifting or sliding while gearing up. And this is where the mechanics of gears comes into play. When you gear up in Trackmania, your car enters a gear up animation, if you will, and during this time, your car will cease to accelerate. Due to the nature of Trackmania, the core philosophy of the game is to build on momentum. As a snowball, you have to keep growing, and in this case, the snowball is your speed. This means that each time you gear up, you lose time and momentum. But this is not all. If you happen to gear up during a drift, which is very easy to do on the dirt surface, your car stalls the gear animation and you remain in the zero acceleration mode for an extended period of time. On top of that, because you are drifting, your car will also lose speed during the zero acceleration window, and as such, force you to reset your run. This is commonly referred to as eating the gear. Good players and streamers will often refer to this mechanic when playing almost any map. This is because on any competitive map on a high level, eating a single gear will cause you to do a reset of your entire run. In layman's terms, always gear up after you've straightened out your car, making sure you're not drifting. Immediately following getting the 5th gear, a sharp right-hander is needed to climb this small mound. The reason for this is that you need to hit the mound with an angle that reduces the airtime you get as much as possible while still getting a preferable angle for the upcoming turn. Airtime in Trackmania is usually something players avoid because while you're in the air, the wheels cannot accelerate your car and thus you lose momentum on the track. There's a plethora of examples of incredibly ingenious ways to reduce airtime. Just landing 1/100th of a second earlier can be incredibly important as the momentum acquired can gain you significant time save over longer stretches of a map. After successfully reducing airtime, there's a rather controversial mechanic that resurfaced recently that only 2 players in the world has executed on this map as of right now. The mechanic in question is the quantum slide. Remember when I told you about speed slides? Well, quantum slides are speed slides without sliding. Here are 3 examples of turning on dirt. First one here is called a no slide because the tire marks overlap completely. This also gives the car way more grip than it has if the car was sliding. This is a slide or a drift. The grip the car has on the ground is way lower, but there's much more freedom of movement. And this is a quantum slide. If you look closely, you can see that the tire marks do not overlap completely. In a quantum slide, you have the grip of no sliding, but get the added benefit of increased acceleration of a speed slide. You effectively speed slide without speed sliding. Thus, the mechanic has been coined the name the quantum slide, because you are drifting and not drifting at the same time. You can even hear the drifting sound of the game, even though you have the full grip of a no slide. This is, however, still less of an acceleration increase than regular speed sliding, because the angle of your tire marks overlap is less than optimal. So why would somebody use this mechanic if it's slower? Well, some turns are too tight to get an optimal speed slide angle on. Turns like these, if done with an attempted speed slide, will force the tire marks to have a wrong angle and slow down the car. This is called an overslide. Therefore, in turns like these, a quantum slide is faster, as you get the benefit from the no-slide grip as well as a decent speed slide acceleration bonus. This is a very advanced mechanic and only something the very top of the world times even remotely think about. But when watched in comparison, it is obvious that quantum sliding is effective. So after you've driven over the mound, reduced airtime and gotten into the turn, you have to countersteer to straighten out your car to get this quantum slide going. The current world record holds this quantum slide for about a second before breaking it. This is done to get a more favorable setup for the rest of the turn, which is done using a regular speed slide. This time, the theoretical optimal tire mark overlap is 86% for this particular speed slide. As you do the speed slide, you approach yet another mound of dirt on the map, setting up far on the right side of the mound and turning quite aggressively into it. You can once again minimize the airtime. This is crucial as you need the speed you generate from accelerating on the mound in a moment. As you get over the mound, you have to set up for an upcoming right-handed turn that will lead you to the finish. To get this setup, you need the speed you generated from the low airtime to clear this jump and land perfectly on the other side. Do this while also making sure that you have the right trajectory to set up for the final part of the map. You have to aim far left of the upcoming checkpoint because when you land, you have to get into a small right-handed speed slide to increase acceleration, even for 0.5 of a second. To end off the map, you have to get a difficult, harsh right-hander into an aggressive countersteer to straighten out your car as you get to the final checkpoint. You want to straighten out your car because a skip was discovered on the map in which you can drive through this very narrow, precise gap between the checkpoint, trees, cacti, and corner of the map. This skip requires you to drive on the more brightly colored, sandy bit of the map. This surface is called penalty dirt and slows down the car quite tremendously. This skip is incredibly difficult to do in practice, and to get this insanely precise angle in an actual run is just crazy. But even though you're doing an incredibly precise skip, there's still even more optimizing to do. Because even though you're losing speed due to the penalty dirt, the rate of speed loss decreases if you speed slide. Now, there's not enough room for a proper speed slide here though, and therefore a quantum slide is utilized to decrease the speed loss. First, a quantum slide to the right to set up for another quantum slide to the left, which is held all the way into the finish. And this is how the world record was driven, on the very first map you encounter upon booting up the game and playing the campaign. Let us watch this amazing run in all its 22.624 second glory. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe as I'm still a small channel, and I hope that I see you again in the next video.